This is the Honda XL750 Transalp, a brilliant all-rounder adventure tourer with a bit of an interesting update for 2026. So is this one to consider, or should you look at something else? Well, we've been riding this one for the past week or two, and so in this video, we'll give you 7 things that you need to know. But before we get started, a massive thanks to CHIGEE for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video, but more on their brilliant products a little bit later.
So thing number 1 that I think you've got to know about this bike before you consider buying one is the fact that it probably isn't the most hardcore off-road adventure focused bike in this sort of 9 to 11 grand middleweight adventure bike market. You can see that in the suspension specs, the ground clearance. Both of them come in around 200 mil of travel. It's around 200 mil of ground clearance as well. But so if you compare it to something like a Tenere 700 Rally, well, that'll do more like 250 on the ground clearance with longer suspension, and it's the same as other stuff like the Touareg, for example, from Aprilia. So yeah, there's other stuff that will probably do the trail riding better, but I think that's by design because realistically Honda would have known how to do that, but they probably wanted to build a more balanced all-round adventure touring kind of bike. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's got the bigger wheels, it's got the adventure tires, it has enough ground clearance that you could do moderate sort of gravel riding, but really the benefit of it being not super tall is that you do get a bike that handles surprisingly well on the road. It doesn't feel all that vague on the front, even though it's got that 21-incher. It brakes surprisingly well for 2-pot axially mounted calipers. And all in, it just doesn't feel too lurchy or bouncy or, you know, soft. And so it's a bike that can actually be quite rewarding when you get to this sort of stuff.
I think the fact that it's not super tall is also beneficial when it comes to the ergonomics as well. It's 850 mil with this standard seat, so not, you know, super tall. Some of the adventure bikes are getting up towards 900, and so for somebody of my size at 5'9" or 175 centimeters, it's a nice compromise. It's not too low. Some adventure bikes, maybe with a low seat, can feel not substantial enough and like they don't have a super commanding riding position, but equally at 216 kilograms fully fueled up, I don't find this bike to be a handful at all. The bar position as well, it's not as wide as maybe the Tiger, for example, that we've ridden here today as well, our camera bike, but still a nice enough feel, spacious, high as you'd expect. It's decent enough, let's say, for standing up as well. It's not its primary focus, but they are quite high set. And then nice foot pegs with rubber inserts for the road to keep the vibes down a little bit. But yeah, in a nice spot. Really neutral and comfortable. This standard seat, though it isn't adjustable, with some adventure bikes you do find that the rider's seat, if it's split, can go up or down by 20 mil or so. This one's fixed at 850 mil, but there is a low accessory seat that will take another 20 mil off it, so that brings it down to 830, so pretty reasonable for most people. And there's also a comfort seat, which I think adds 20 mil more padding, so I assume that takes it up to 870. So if you are a taller rider who does need a little more leg room, that might be one to consider as well.
This bike's versatility is also backed up by a really good engine. It's their 750 parallel twin that you'll also find in the 750 Hornet. And while it does get those typical twin qualities of being fairly torquey, mid-rangey, usable down low, but also it is an engine, if you bang it down into second, that's really quite happy to rev out a bit and make some decent top end power. 90 horses peak, so more than quite a lot of the other stuff in this market, like a Tenere or the Suzuki 800. And it does make for a fairly entertaining ride when you do give it some beans between corners. It's certainly no slouch. And also, both me and Tim were pretty impressed by the soundtrack. Despite being fairly quiet, it's got a bit of a bark to it.
Now, in the intro, I did mention there was a little point of difference for 2026, and at least in the UK anyway, the Transalp is now only available with their e-clutch system fitted as standard. That's why you can see this extra bulk here on the right-hand side of the engine. It's an electronic actuator that can operate the clutch on your behalf. And so while there is a regular manual clutch lever which you can use to override it, well, it does give you the option to ride it as a twist and go. So it doesn't do the gears like with some of the AMT systems from Yamaha, KTM, BMW, but it does give you clutchless up and down shifts, a bit like a quick shifter would operate. And like I say, the main point of convenience is just the ability to not have to hold the clutch in when you're in stop-start traffic. On top of that, I think the key thing is, well, not everybody's going to want it, but Honda have been quite smart about that by, you know, keeping that standard clutch lever, and you can also fully switch it off if you go through the settings in the dash. Really, I can't see many downsides for this, and so I do think it's a nice inclusion. Of course, it's going to add a little bit of weight, but it really is minimal. Presumably, it would add a little bit to the total price as well, although you can't really see that because the manual version isn't available. And so, yeah, I think you've just got to enjoy the benefits. It's switchable, offable if you don't want it. But if you did find yourself in heavy city traffic, well, it means, like I say, no feathering the clutch constantly, and also frees up your left hand to open your visor, for example, even if you've got the bike ready to go in gear. So look, lots to enjoy about this bike, certainly plenty of reasons to recommend it, but I will say no bike is perfect, and so here are some of the areas I'd look to improve if I was to buy a Transalp 750. One would be the cockpit. I find the switchgear easy to use, it's nicely laid out, but I will say the dash is a little bit on the small side, and also the design and layout of it is just a little bit plain. Like I say, the other bike we've got today is our Tiger 900 camera bike. Certainly moving between the two, you'll notice that even the Triumph's dash isn't particularly fancy, but it just has a bit more of a quality, interesting, exciting feel to it. And so maybe I would look to supplement this particular dash just to make it feel a little more full-featured and engaging to use. That's the other big difference. We've got the CHIGEE AIO-6 on our bike. We use it for CarPlay, we use it for the dash cams, for the blind spot warnings, we use it for TPMS as well. And so if you do have a bike like this that's a little bit simple in its feature set, or an older bike that just wants refreshing and bringing in some of the latest technological features, then it's a brilliant way to do it. Very easy to install and really does bring in a heck of a lot of modern conveniences. We've actually paired it as well with their latest SR1 blind spot radar 2, so that gives you really reliable blind spot warnings and also rear collision warnings. And on top of that, you've also got some really well thought out security features, so you can geofence your bike, and you can also access the cameras remotely from the app to check on your bike if you do think someone's tampering with it. Genuinely, it's really transformed how our Tiger feels to use. It's a 2021, so it's really brought it up to date. And so there are links down in the description below if you fancy picking up one for your bike. One thing, unfortunately, though, that you can't fix about this bike is the fact that it doesn't have cruise control. Maybe there is a third-party system, I don't know, we should have a look about that, Tim. Let's stick it on in the edit if we find something, but as far as I know anyway, there's no cruise control, and given that it has a little bit more of a road focus than some of the other middleweight adventure bikes, personally, I would have really liked to have seen it here. I will say as well, we do our research on sort of owner's reviews when we're scripting these videos, and one thing that did come up quite a bit is the fact that it's on tube-type rims, which I think a lot of people find a little more inconvenient or a little bit harder to repair than if it was able to run tubeless. I will say though, I've successfully recently, Tim, done a tubeless conversion on the Bonneville. We did it for, we put some knobblies on it for ABR recently, and I took the chance while I was changing the tyres over to fit an Altrex tubeless kit. And so that's something I'd fully recommend. If that's one of the things that's putting you off this bike, it's just an option if you're either handy or know a tyre guy who's going to do it on your behalf. I wish I'd filmed a bit of it because it's actually really not that bad to do.
You probably just got PTSD from doing the other ones.
Oh yeah, that's the thing, mate. Any tyre change is riddled with foul language for me. So I don't think it would have been publishable. But like I say, that wasn't a hard bit, just generally changing tyres. But it's something I'd consider for this bike for sure.
I'm going to say as well, I was quite surprised to find it has a non-adjustable windscreen. It just doesn't really give you all that much coverage in this standard form. And so almost certainly I'd either be looking at the official accessory touring screen. You can probably hear a bit of wind noise around me right now, or you could look at something like Power Bronze for a third-party product like the one I've got on my Tiger 900. I'm sure they do one for this as well, and it would certainly improve the situation just to have a couple of inches on top. I will say they did change it, I think a year or so back, with a bit of a scoop down there to release a bit of pressure in behind the screen, so there should be a touch less buffeting, but really that's not my complaint as such. It's more so the lack of adjustability and, I don't know, fairly minimal size of it.
I will say as well, from that sort of mid-cycle update, there are a few other things to be aware of, especially if you're thinking about buying a used one, as some of these more recent features might push you towards a newer bike. The suspension, for example, it's got more adjustability on the fork. It's a little softer on the fork as well for a touch more comfort, but also they've upped the damping on the rear shock to stop it from squatting so much under acceleration, and so hopefully the bike feels a little better balanced out. Then they also tweaked the switchgear to make it a little bit easier to use. The throttle response was also smoothed out a touch, so you might find this a little more pleasant to ride. But maybe the best tweak of all, and you can call me vain, but it might be this new headlight. I think one of the few things that put me off the old one visually was the fact that it had a CB500 headlight, or what was it, NX500 or something like that. It felt like it was borrowing parts from a bike lower down in the lineup, and so they've changed it to look a little more, well, it kind of bridges the gap between 500 and Africa Twin. It's got a bit more of its own identity. And so even though this seems like a relatively minor change, I do think it's really done the job in terms of giving this bike a bit more of a quality look to the front end, and like I say, its own look and feel, which it thoroughly deserves.
So look, would I recommend buying a Transalp 750 in 2026? Well, there are certainly some standout features for me. The engine is one of them. It really would make this quite the tempting proposition, and also the sort of sensible chassis design that realistically can do most of the off-road stuff that I personally would consider doing with it, but also gives you a really good road bike as well. Price-wise, I think it's pretty good as well. £9,999, I think, considering you're getting the Honda build and brand behind it. I think that's reasonable, and I also do like the comfort, and I like the image as well. I think it's a good looking bike, especially since they updated that headlight. Realistically, most of those shortcomings, apart from the cruise control, I think can be addressed with some choice accessories. And so yeah, 100% recommend at least taking one for a spin, but maybe just allow a little bit of extra budget to adapt the bike and really make it good for the sort of riding that you like to do.
As always, I'd love to know what you think of the bike though, so do let me know down in the comments below. And if you do fancy something a little more beefy, let's say, a bit more substantial, maybe a bit more off-road biased as well, then I'll leave our review of the Africa Twin on the screen now so you can give it a watch in case you missed that one. Do hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle reviews like this right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.